Yo, Peter.
Hey, man.
Man, these intro tunes have been getting kind of out of hand.
I know. It's been bonkers, man. And you know what? That's my bad.
A lot of, cool arrangements, but
Yeah,
like
but
a lot of hits, a lot of
getting fussy.
reharm.
It's getting fussy.
It's a little fussy. I thought today maybe we go like straight down the middle.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Well, for this album, St. Thomas is classic on here. Sonny Rollins tune.
Yeah.
Key of C. I don't know. I made a lead sheet for everybody.
I don't really need it. I mean,
Right.
Bob probably does.
One,
but, okay.
two, 1, 2, 3, and. Yeah, guys, that's what I'm talking about. What do you think, Pete?
Can we play St. Thomas?
I'm Adam Menace.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music Explored.
Explored, brought to you today by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for all your jazz lesson needs. Peter, did you know that we have a brand new YouTube channel that's devoted to just performances?
I've heard of such a thing. Is it called Open Studio Music by any chance?
It is indeed called Open Studio
Music.
Performed. That's right. We're going to end this episode with a version of St. Thomas, and that version of St. Thomas is going to find its way over to the new tracks channel, Open Studio Music. We've got a couple hits on there already. We've got our version of Michael Jackson's Rock With You from our Off the Wall episode from this podcast is over there. And
how is that?
People are liking it.
Really? Okay, I'm going to check it out.
I don't want to toot my own horn.
I'm like an antelope follower. What's the herd of antelope? I'll follow
them off the cliff?
Yeah.
But go check it out. We'll actually link.
Oh, that was the 2 piano one.
Yeah, just
nice.
the piano vintage vibe, and we
good.
switched at the end. And it was
right.
a good time.
Nice.
So go over there, check out Open Studio Music on YouTube. We'll put a link.
There is
to
a
that.
price for that. It's free $99.
It's free $99.
Yeah.
It's affordable, but it's not nothing.
Well, it actually is not free. You have to subscribe if you enjoy it. If you don't like it, just leave.
Give us a sub. We're also doing like original music over there.
Yeah.
We're probably going to make an album here.
We're having fun.
Yeah. So today, Peter, is a weird day. It is one of our most requested albums ever. It is an album that...
By you?
No, by our dear listeners. It's an
it.
album that I was infatuated with when I was a young man. In fact, me and all my friends in my friend group would talk about this album, listen to this album. It was just a lot of fun if you were in high school and a jazz nerd, which I was in 1995. It is Joshua Redman's Spirit of the Moment live at the Village Vanguard, of which...
Yes.
You are playing on.
Yes.
You are. This is the very first time we are listening to an album on the You'll Hear podcast that Peter Martin was on. And this is one that your fans really, really appreciate. They really love all of your solos. We get requested, can you guys talk about St. Thomas? Can you talk about Jig-a-Jug? And so, yes, today we are talking about it.
I'm excited. Can't you tell?
How are you really feeling, honestly? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine.
It's weird.
I'm actually I'm less into the listening of it than I do know people love this record, and I think it is a great record, but I haven't listened to it a lot. And so it's interesting there's so many records that, like what you mentioned about being in high school with your friends, like I kind of had the exact same thing probably 10 years earlier, where I was listening to like Wynton Marsalis with Kenny Kirkland, Branford, Jeff Tain Watts on Black Coats from the Underground, and then J Moob with Marcus Roberts, those records, because those guys were like 10 years older than us. So, but they seemed like they were just light years ahead of us and everything. But when you're in high school and you figured out a little something, and then you hear some guys and gals that are still kind of young, but this seems like, dang, how could I get there? It's a really exciting time. So I get that. And a lot of people this is probably one of the most talked about records, just from people coming up to me, as you said.
I'm sure.
That are just like, oh, I love your thing on that. But it's very interesting because I haven't listened to this record very much. In fact, I've almost never listened to it. I've heard it, of course, and we're going to hear it. This might be the most I've ever heard it in years, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was involved a little bit in like the mix and listening to it right at the time, but since then I just haven't really listened to it. So it's very interesting to just get other people's reactions to something, because normally if people tell me about a record or something, I go listen to it, or it's something that I already know. And so you're getting people's comments and reactions and connections, you have that connection through the music. And so weirdly for me, I don't even feel like I have that connection, even though I'm on the album.
Well, it's this album, by the way, too. This is a timely podcast about it because it is 30 years old this year.
Damn! Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Damn!
I know. Yeah.
Wait, you were in high school 30 years ago?
I'm old, man.
That's right.
But you're older.
And when did you graduate exactly?
So let's graduate as a loose term.
Same for me.
So, but this will be a fun, if not slightly uncomfortable episode for Peter. It's always weird hearing yourself. I feel like 30 years though is enough time past probably where you could be like, that's a whole different dude back then.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right,
How old
right.
were you when you made this?
I'm just looking at the dates. I was 24.
So
20. Wait, was this 95? I was 20. March 95. I was 24.
Just a pup.
I was just a pup,
All you
but
guys.
I felt pretty well seasoned at this point.
Yeah, you're done. We'll get into that.
We were starting out earlier
You
then.
did some stuff.
Because it was released August 1995, recorded March, but I'm pretty sure that was 95 we recorded it.
It was March 1995.
Yeah.
The 21st and the 25th of the Village Vanguard was when these sessions took place. This was released on Warner Brothers Records.
Right, Warner Jazz.
Warner Jazz under Joshua Redman's name.
Yeah.
One of the best live jazz albums of the 90s, kind of like across the board. People talk about this one as up there as far as like live jazz albums. One of the best Village Vanguard live albums ever. And Joshua Redman, also a young pup. He's about your age, I think. He's maybe
He was probably, I think he's like 2 years older than me, maybe.
That's about right.
We were all right around this. The whole quartet was within 1 to 2 years. Actually, the rhythm section, Brian Blade, Chris Thomas, and myself, we were all born in 1970, within a couple of months of each other.
Yeah. We'll get into the rhythm section in a little bit, but
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Joshua
I know we got to
Redman-
talk about the saxophonist first. I know how this party goes.
We'll get there. We'll get
I
there.
think he solos first on every
So,
tune.
like you, Peter, Josh Redman comes from a musical family. His father is also, like you, a professional musician. The great Dewey Redman,
Yes.
tenor saxophonist. Dewey Redman famously played with Ornette Coleman here in the late 60s. This is Round Trip from New York Is Now. Two tenors.
Yeah. Is that Hayden?
This is actually Elvin Jones and Jimmy Garrison.
Oh, wow.
On this album. Yeah.
Oh.
Isn't that great? Ornette Coleman, Dewey Redman, Jimmy Garrison on the bass, Elvin Jones on the drums. Yeah, Train's rhythm section with those two tenor titans. Pretty great. Did you ever get a chance, was Dewey ever around when you were in Josh's band?
Yeah, he was, and I'd actually met him before that, and I got a chance to play with him a little bit.
Oh,
and
cool.
he was a really, such an intro. You could do a whole other episode on the connection musically and obviously genetically, father-son between Josh and Dewey. Super interesting in terms of their concept and stuff. But of course, I was really even more familiar at this time with Dewey's work with, of course, the American Quartet with Keith Jarrett, because I'd been listening to that stuff a lot.
Legendary.
Actually, because Brian Blade turned me on to a lot of that stuff, strangely enough, around this time. And this was still definitely in a period for me of discovery. I mean, as much music as I heard and learned growing up, still when I was in my early 20s, thanks to people like Brian Blade and Chris Thomas and Joshua Redman and Roy Hargrove, I mean, they would turn me on to Nicholas Payton, turn me on to so much music, man. I felt like a little green puppy, like Kermit the Frog or something, just like totally green. So it was a very exciting time for me. Yeah.
Well, Joshua Redman, having such an incredibly accomplished father, of course, naturally became a musician. I don't think he got there in a straight line, though.
No, not at all.
Is a smarty pants of a guy and probably could have done anything. He ended up, thankfully for all of us, turning to the tenor saxophone and turning to jazz. And in 1993, he made his debut. This is from the self-titled album. This is Blues on Sunday. We've got Joshua Redman on the tenor saxophone, Kevin Hayes on the piano, Christian McBride on the bass, and Gregory Hutchinson on the drums. Quite a lineup.
Early 90s jazz, baby.
Early 90s jazz. Little throwback.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, this was on Warner Brothers.
Yeah, he came out on Warner Brothers.
Yeah. This is a really young Christian McBride. It's a really young everybody, but it's so fun because like McBride, Kevin Hayes, everybody, John, they already had their personalities. Like this is how they sound now. You know what I mean? It was there was a lot of strong musical personalities, even though we were all very insecure and like still trying to figure shit out for sure. I mean, I remember this whole period. In fact, Josh, right around the time, that was 93, I think, 92, he came down to New Orleans, and I think it was before, like he won the Monk competition, the Thelonious Monk competition, which was a really big deal then. I guess it's still a big deal, but it was really big then because they had just started. And I guess it was a couple years before he won, before we did this. But anyway, that's kind of what led to the debut album and the Warner Brothers deal and stuff.
So the first album with a bunch of his peers, Kevin Hayes, McBride, Hutch, are all around your guys' age. Next album with sort of the generation above Joshua Redman, Pat Metheny, Charlie Hayden, and Billy Higgins. This is Wish, which is a lot of people's favorite album.
I thought that was the first record. That was second.
They're around the same time.
That's right.
Yeah. Same year, actually. This is Turnaround from Wish.
Higgins, Hayden, Metheny.
Yeah, the legendary rhythm section here, Pat Metheny, Charlie Hayden, Billy Higgins.
And Josh got to tour with this group. Well, he toured with Pat Metheny, but it was essentially this music, and which was such a great experience for him. I mean, all of us, that was a cool thing. We got to do a little bit of touring with the elders, with the masters. So important because there's so many gigs. We were playing so much together, different iterations and stuff, but such a great thing that the masters gave back to us and let us be on the bandstand with them.
When is the Pat Metheny episode happening? That's what I want.
Oh yeah, we got to do that. We got to do that.
Next up, 1994. This is an album we played on the podcast before when we were talking about Brad Mehldau. This is Mood Swing. This is Headin' Home. Brad Mehldau. This is Headin' Home from Mood Swing.
Oh
yeah. So we're all leading up here to 1995.
Yeah. And this track is actually this is a little unusual from the rest of that record. This is kind of foreshadowing to more the like funky crossover stuff Josh would do later on.
But this is Brian Blade, Christian McBride, and Brad Mehldau. But this is leading into some things that we're going to hear on The Spirit of the Moment.
Yeah.
And then later, especially with like the Elastic Band and that kind of stuff.
Do we get funky on Spirit? I don't even remember.
There's maybe feelings of funk. There's not like this, but there's feelings of it for sure. Now, as all of this is going on, there's a swell happening in the city of New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes.
There are many, many young musicians who are about your age, including you, Peter.
Yes.
And there's especially a trio that has made a name for themselves, and it's a trio of Peter Martin, Chris Thomas on bass, and Brian Blade on the drums.
Yes.
You all are playing together, I don't know, how many nights a week?
A lot. We had a gig. One of the gigs we did on the week, we were playing with everybody, and then we were playing as a trio, with Victor Goins and his band, with Nicholas Payton. He was playing with us. But we had a great gig for a while at a place called Charlie B's. Charlie Baring, great personality, impresario, R.I.P. Charlie Baring, opened up a club in the Warehouse District for a while. And the gig started at 1.
All right.
And went until either 4 or 5. I can't remember. It was an after hours kind of gig.
How much would they have to pay you now to do a gig like that?
It'd be easy. I get up early. That would just be an early gig now. It was a late, but we'd always have a gig before.
You have your green smoothie, you go to the gig at 1.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to stay up late
tonight. Go to bed by 6,
But yeah, no, it was such a great time though. Yeah, man.
Well, speaking of Victor Goins, Victor will often joke that like Joshua Redman stole my rhythm section.
Right. I forgot about it. This is good. But you found all this online?
I know some people personally in this scenario, as it turns out. So this is for Mother's Sake. This is from Victor Goins' 1992 album Genesis. So Victor, tenor saxophonist, famously from Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, New Orleans guy, and he had hired you and Chris and Ryan as a rhythm section, and within a couple of years, you'd be playing with Joshua Redman, the three of you. This is For Mother's Sake.
Oh, man.
It's Nicholas Payton on the trumpet.
Yeah. teenage Nicholas.
Peter Martin, Chris Thomas, and Brian Blade. So here you're 21, 92.
Probably. Yeah.
Huh. And Nick is probably
18, 19, yeah. But we were playing with him before this. When he was 16 is what I think when I met him. He sounded like this.
What's in the water down there, man?
There was a lot of, like, thinking back on it, man, we played so much. Like, and then we would just, like, rehearse. And sometimes we wouldn't have a gig. We'd just be like, all right, we're going to rehearse. Yeah. Can you imagine calling someone now? Can you imagine me calling you? Can we just rehearse? Just jam?
You remember when old cats would be like, take advantage of the time when you're young.
I know.
Because you don't get it back. And you're
right.
like, yeah, whatever. We'll be fine. But it's true. That time that when you're teenagers, when you're in your early 20s, is the time to, like, do crazy stuff like rehearse all day, go play all night.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It gets harder and harder to do.
So
if you're wondering and listening, that
absolutely.
will be something that old people will often say and continue to say throughout history. Because it's true.
And get together and play with people in real life. You know, like there's a tendency now, it's like, oh, I can send tracks around, or I can, you know, put my video up on Instagram. That's all fine. But like you have to seek that out.
Yeah, you do.
Like to learn how to negotiate that. But I will say, so during this time, I don't remember the exact timing, but probably around a little bit after this record, Josh did come down a few times to New Orleans, which is, I think when I first met him, I might have met him, yeah, because this is before I was playing with Roy Hargrove. And Delphio Marsalis brought him down. I might be screwing up this story, but I'm 97%.
No one else was around.
You know what
So you're good. You're good.
No, there's a lot of people there. I should just call Josh because he.
Well, let me text Delphio.
Man, Josh would definitely remember. Like he has such a great memory for this stuff. But he came down, and he knew Delphio, I think, from Boston. Like Delphio was at Berkeley, and Joshua was going right before this to Harvard undergrad, but he was going over to Berkeley a lot. Aaron Goldberg, same thing. He was like coming up right after. Josh and met him at Harvard, but they used to be over at Berkeley. That's all the cats were, you know? Yeah. So, like, he came down to New Orleans, and there is this thing about, like, he stole the whole rhythm section. It was a little more complicated than that, but he definitely would have heard us. I mean, we all played together during that period, and then it was more kind of like he had this great group with Meldau and McBride and Blade.
Yeah, the Mood Swing Band.
Yeah, and I think McBride and Meldau were about to go do some other things, and he heard us. He knew we were playing with Blade a lot, and like there was that. But for me, it was more the connection with Roy Hargrove, because that's when I played with Josh and really connected with him the year before in '94.
Right.
Like because he was playing as like a guest with Roy a lot because they did a record together.
But he must have had you three in mind somehow, or was that just fortuitous?
I mean, I think it kind of was a little bit fortuitous, actually. I mean, he knew we played, we'd all played together in New Orleans, but Blade was already playing with them, and he knew we wanted to sculpt something around that. I was playing with him with Roy, and then Chris was kind of playing with everybody during that time. So it came together nicely.
Well, you all have such a special chemistry, and I think what's really special about this episode and this album is that we get to hear, first of all, you playing in a context of some of the highest level musicians of your generation, and whatever was going on in the air at the club that week, like the people are super into it. And I remember this from seeing Joshua Redman in the 90s. Like specifically, there was this energy around him of like, this is like a whole new thing that we're seeing here. Nothing quite like it had happened.
It was almost like Young Lions kind of 1.1. Right. Because he was still the Young Lions, but it was like Wynton, Branford.
It wasn't that.
It wasn't that, but it wasn't like a generation later.
Right.
But like we were talking about, it's like a half generation thing. Roy, for like between, I think Roy Hargrove and Joshua
like
Redman.
Centennial.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, but I remember there was, but it was also like the media landscape was different. And we like to think it's only about the music, but the way the stuff was presented, like they had a media machine behind Josh and kind of behind all of us. I mean, we had like a Donna Karan like endorsement.
You're kidding.
No, all of us, the whole band.
Get out of town.
The clothes did fall apart about 6 months later.
Open studio?
It was just, so like stuff was presented, but I think we followed through on the music in a way, but it was very much geared towards younger people.
Wow.
Like, and I think you'll hear this on the record. I remember in the club, it was so exciting. People were lined up, and it wasn't just old heads.
Like I said before,
it was a combination.
You know, at this time, I'm a junior in high school, I think. And me and all my friends.
Oh, your final year.
Me and all my friends could not get enough of this album.
Right.
And so, knew every note, knew every solo, would try to play. Like, I remember trying to play Herbs and Roots and just falling on our faces. You know what I mean?
And you know what's cool is like these records, I don't know, maybe this still happens, but I don't know when the record came out, it was just a few months, March to August. Like, there's something about, especially a live record, where it was just a few months ago, and you're getting it in St. Louis and High Ridge, and it's like, man, this happened in New York, like in the spring. Like, to me, that's exciting. Like, I love going back to listen to records from the 50s, but come on now, is that 75 years ago? How about 7 months ago? That's cool.
Yeah. So, kick off with an incredible track to start. This is Jig-a-Jug. This is a Joshua Redman original, as many of these are. Most of these are. But this track is just unbelievable. Well, let's listen.
Oh, yeah. D-flat blues, I think. Chris Thomas always played great stuff on this intro. Different every night.
Great tradition too of Village Vanguard recordings.
Yes.
That dry,
bone dry,
bone
marrow dry.
Can hear the kick drum so clearly.
Yeah. Blade always tuned his drums so well. I'm actually surprised. We're playing pretty simple and disciplined here, we didn't always do that. It's very like. Like Chris is the main one, which is great.
It all goes. Yeah, it all starts to. But listen, you can hear the crowd from the jump are like hanging on every note.
Yeah, the energy was really palpable there and helpful for us. I do remember that. A little bit of channeling RVG on this mix here. I forgot about that. For the piano. Yeah, there's a little bit of like, I forgot about this. Me and Blade and Thomas, we do have a little bit of that New Orleans way of playing a rhythm section. You know, like this is not as, it's New Yorky, but there's got a little bit of New Orleans in it, you know, which made sense because that's where we all were at that.
Yeah, you guys came together a couple years ago here at Jazz St. Louis for a little reunion trio show that was unbelievable.
That was fun.
One of my favorite shows the past 5 years.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, and Josh always fit in good to the New Orleans thing, actually. As much as he's like, I'm a coastal guy, West Coast, East Coast.
He pulls out the swing jump stuff.
That's a little bit of Deweyism, too, though. Like, they play out, bebop, but also like Texas tenor kind of vibe.
Yeah, his father Dewey from Fort Worth.
Yeah, that's right. That's the Texas connection. And also, the year before this, we did some gigs with Roy Hargrove, Joshua Redman, Stanley Turnsey, Johnny Griffin, Ron Blake. Yeah. So like he had a lot of really cool Mark Turner, like younger and older, like tenor stuff. Tenors of our time. Yeah. And you know, Chris Thomas and Brian Blade, like one of the great rhythm sections of all time. That duo there, man.
And they were just on the road with Norah Jones a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Together. Still.
Yeah. Josh. Master building a solo, not a problem.
There's a lot of this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this
Yeah.
in the album. There's a lot of growth of the solos.
Okay, turn it off now.
We will not turn it off to you. I love all the kick drum stuff Blade is doing throughout this first part of your solo. Hey.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Already out of tune. Second set. This is definitely second set. Yeah.
And some quibble bits there.
I do remember, like, one thing about playing with Josh, like, I was always I'm always trying to think about, like, not just, like, my soul as a story, but the whole thing.
Yeah.
And when he plays a solo like that goes to the mountaintop a couple of times,
Yeah.
like, I don't like trying to go to that mountaintop. I think I do maybe on some other tunes, but I try to balance that, you know.
Totally.
Now watch, I'm probably going to try to go there now.
You do.
Oh, do I really? On this?
a little
Damn.
bit. Well,
Well, sometimes Josh be egging me on, too. Or Blade, you know. Or not even just me, I'm just saying, like, us as a band.
I
you know?
also think that's a young musician thing,
Yeah.
too, of like,
Oh, okay. Forget about what he said.
no, you on a couple times you do, for sure. Like, if he's trying, like, building, and I agree, I'm the same way. It's like,
And when it's a live gig, it's even more important because you're feeling that. Because sometimes it's kind of like a chef just putting too much on. Here, eat some more. And you're like, oh, it's good, but I'm you know.
yeah, sometimes you just want to completely change up the vibe.
Yeah.
And not just everything is the same structure, everything is the same architecture.
Yeah. And Blade actually does a great job. He's such a great architect of, like, whoa, okay, it's going out of tune now.
Yeah. Such good playing, though, man.
Chris. Oh.
Yeah. But you guys didn't go fully
Right,
like
right.
what you could do, what you did
Yeah.
with some other tracks, for sure. A little Chris Thomas action here.
Yeah.
Man,
It's fun.
do you remember this week? Like, do you remember, because it was over multiple days. Do you remember
Yeah.
playing at the Vanguard?
No, I do.
Was this like your first, fourth?
It wasn't the first
50th?
time, but it was early on. I think I maybe played there 2 times or something, maybe 3 times. So I do remember, and I can check on this, and if people are interested, maybe in the comments I can figure this out, because Josh will remember. I know this, almost the whole album is from one night. Like,
Wow.
they recorded every night, which was a really big deal then. Because now when you record there, they can set up everything in the kitchen, you know, for recording. But they had a full, like, truck out there, which used to be, you know, like one of those audio trucks,
Yeah.
trailers that would come and was, like, parked on 7th Avenue. And it was a big thing because usually when you played the Vanguard, it was like you get 1 or 2 nights of recording if you played there for the week, Tuesday through Sunday. The record companies would give you either 1 or 2 nights of the trailer. So you had to do it. But they were like, we're going to up the budget on this. They're going to have the truck there the whole time.
Amazing.
And then there was just like this one set that was just like killing.
And so they only
I mean, I think the vibe, as I recall was good. Like we used to go out in the truck and listen to stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
But that got a little bit like Josh was really into like how are we going to put this together. But there was one set that I think was like half of the record, and I think that one night was like more than 3/4. So we did a lot of this tunes over and over again, thinking, and it was early on in the week too, as I recall.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Man.
But there was some good choices. I wasn't super involved with that. I was there for a little bit of the mix and stuff, but it was mainly, I mean, it's the Vanguard, man. It's just, and the audience was great. It was like packed every night, and it was a very young, and I mean, it was all different ages there, but I remember a lot of young people and super exciting.
The next track, we take it to the Gershwins. This is absolutely beautiful, and this is, I know, a lot of people's favorite. This gets tossed around all sorts of jazz playlists here on Spotify. This is My One and Only Love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a little bone to pick about the piano sound on this one. I mean, it sounds live, which is cool.
Yeah.
But come on.
I mean, it's very much the way the piano sounds in the Vanguard, though. But level-wise, yeah.
Level-wise, good. It's not like that. People like 90s, man.
I know.
People didn't have phones.
That's right. Yeah, would people not react like that now? They're like, I know that. Something changed, right? Yeah. I mean, we're just playing a stand. I just did like a regular intro. We just came in. It wasn't like.
People are like, oh, it's getting sexy.
Yeah. Getting sexy.
Oh, God.
These tracks are long. Damn. Okay.
Everything is really, I mean, it's a live album. That's what you want, though,
Yeah.
man. This is what the people want, the long tracks on a live album.
Yeah, we didn't. I remember it wasn't like we were just playing sets. There was very little. I mean, Josh is very good at like putting albums together and tunes and stuff. And I'm sure he spent a lot of time thinking about like the sequencing and different things. But in terms of playing, I don't remember there being a lot of like, all right, guys, don't play too long. No, I think we just played.
So it's a beautiful version of My One and Only Love. And I love the long track listing. Like, I don't want people to shorten the stuff
Right.
for a lot. Like, I want to, if it's a live album, I want to hear what you're,
This is the way we would
live.
play at the
Yeah,
Vanguard if they hadn't been recorded. And that's why it ended up being a double CD. You know?
This is a great original here, the Count Me Out, which comes up.
Oh, God.
Do you remember these tunes?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember them.
Stressful.
Because I had all this stuff memorized. I remember that. Yeah, because I remember I started adding those chords in because Josh always wanted it like single line. And I think I kind of snuck them in and was like, okay, you know.
Joshua Redman plays the tenor often just like it's a drum.
Yeah.
He's very, he must be one of the more rhythmic
Man.
composers,
Absolutely. Yeah.
players.
He really understands like
Well,
rhythm,
we-
syncopation in terms of how it sits in the groove in a really advanced way. That's why him and Blade play off of each other so well.
I just stepped on a really great moment. I'm going to back it up a little bit. Also, I think if you were to do a Joshua Redman impression, you would have to do huge range. Yeah, huge range sweeps. It's part of the thing.
It's very Sonny Rollins-esque. Like his
totally.
his understanding of the ranges of the tenor
Yeah.
is at that Sonny level, I would have to say.
It's, yeah, but it's even more exaggerated.
Yeah. You know, I always like laying out, and I think I did it a lot. I can't remember what tunes, but I felt like as much as I always wanted to play with them, this is a great trio with pianoless trio too.
That's good.
So it was always hard for me to like. And then when Peter Bernstein came in the band, I remember telling him sometimes I would come, and then he would also be like, I'd be like,
Yeah.
you don't have to, but cool stuff happens when we lay out sometimes.
I love letting the drummer kind of take over as the main comper.
Yeah.
You know, like give them just all the space.
On this tune, I actually went up, there used to be a great pizza place right above the Vanguard.
yeah,
I went up and had a slice, and it was 95 cents at the time. It was in the 90s.
Go into the truck, the Warner Brothers truck, and be like, what's going on, guys?
You know what's so great about this in hearing, especially when the piano stops, the pianist gets out the way, is like that's very modern.
Yeah.
As much as the 90s. I mean, putting myself back into the 90s, but it's also a kind of time. It's like very connected with. I'm thinking like Sonny Rollins and his pianist trios.
Totally.
At the Vanguard.
Totally.
Or anywhere. There's something about that room, and I mean, shout out to James Farber, to Paul Booth, who James Farber was the engineer on this, Matt Pearson who produced it, and like Josh for the vision on this. But it's got that like fresh feeling, but it also kind of could be like 1959 in the Vanguard in a way, you know.
That's the advantage of the Vanguard, is that it is a timeless sounding studio essentially.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard to differentiate between this and something that happened 10 years before this, 20 years before, 20 years after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It all sounds like that dry Vanguard stuff. Of course, you can hear the difference in the recording technologies, but it's very, very similar to other live recordings, even from the 50s and 60s.
And I might be speaking out of turn here because I don't actually remember, but well, the record after, so I think this was analog. I think this was recorded on the half-inch things.
Oh, wow.
Or 3/4 inch or whatever.
Cool.
The reason I don't totally remember what was in that truck was because I know the record we did after this, the Freedom in the Groove, was definitely on analog. Because I remember I remember Farber, testing edits and stuff, like whether or not we were going to go in. He was with the razor blade, on the. So I'm assuming this would have been too. So I mean that contributes, I think, to that, because a lot of that early digital sound was a little bit. I mean, this was well into.
I mean,
the
a lot of
digital
people
period.
don't know that we record this podcast also
Totally analog
to 2-inch tape. Yeah,
this is an
Sam
analog.
and Caleb back there with razor blades.
Yeah, we're just pressing buttons. We're just surfing the net. We're not actually triggering anything.
Yeah. No, it's all on tape. So.
Yeah.
All right.
I got something. I'll give it to you afterwards. Don't let me forget to talk about Japan, because that's a key to this record, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Japan. The next track I want to listen to is an Irving Berlin tune called Remember. And I don't want to listen to your solo because it's something later in a category.
Oh, yeah.
I love this tune, and this is one of my favorite tracks on the whole album.
I'm a little busy in the background there, aren't I?
Tonguing everything.
Chris, such a great, playing off the soloist.
Chris, tasteful Thomas.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about Chris Thomas and Brian Blake?
Yes.
You've known them forever since they were teenagers practically. I mean, you've known Chris Thomas
since we were 12 years old.
Since you were 12 years old, yeah.
Been playing music together since we were 12.
Because you guys grew up in the same neighborhood, essentially.
Yeah.
And what is it about Chris Thomas? What is that thing?
Well, he's just, he's an incredible bassist, and Josh did know the blues scale. Okay, got it. That's a great. Josh is a master of the solo break.
Oh my gosh.
And that was kind of a well-placed one.
That was good.
Yeah. No, Chris is just like, he's such a, like, you hear it on this kind of playing especially. He's all ears.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of other great bass players that are all ears or mostly ears, but I think Chris is kind of off the charts. So, and then he's such a great player. His sound is so great. It's so him. And then because he's able to listen to several things at the same time, as you have to be able to do for all jazz musicians, but he's just doing that at a very high level. So it enables him to be able to do, like you heard that the way that Josh started that solo, Chris immediately played something that could have been very obtrusive, but it was almost like became a counter melody, a counter idea that was very subtle and interesting, but rewards. If you listen to this over and over again, you'd be like I haven't listened to this a lot, but that would already be something that's like, oh, next time I'm going to check that out. And that's another way to kind of another prism to view this music with. And so he's always got all that stuff happening. It always feels good. The basic stuff is there.
Yeah.
But then there's all these cool little subtleties that his really highly attuned ear leads you to.
I mean, as you're saying that about Christopher Thomas, I could just plug in Brian Blade to that as well.
Absolutely.
Because all those same things are true about Brian Blade. The ears are off the charts. He hears everything, and the choices and the decisions and the taste of what he's doing. Like you mentioned, his tuning, his sound has been copied so much for the last 30 years. Like, and for good reason, because it's just this incredibly earthy, organic. He can play like, you know, really fire New York style, straight ahead stuff. And he can play, you know, country music with Emmylou Harris or, you know, incredible pop music with Norah Jones, just soft acoustic things going on, and everything in between, seemingly.
Yeah, because he always has that his sound from the like, and yes, that is the tuning. It's the size. He had a really little bass drum at this time. I don't know if he's still playing on one that small. I want to say 16-inch.
That was a huge influence.
Tell me,
I remember drummers here in St. Louis.
Oh, cats were throwing away their big bass drums.
15, 14-inch bass drums, like floor toms converted to bass drums.
Totally.
Blade was playing such small bass drums.
Yeah. But it's more like, even like we would go to jam sessions. Like we were playing a lot. Even like when we toured so heavy this year. That's why I talk about Japan. And like we would go to jam. We were just going out to play. And like Blade just sitting down on a random 22-inch bass drum still sounded like that. Yeah. Still sounded like that. So I mean, yes, it's you know, you get into a perfectly crafted situation like this where he's got his drums, and it's important. I mean, like he still travels with his drums more than any drummer I know. Yeah. Like, you know, and it's a pain in the ass, but he'll do it. He'll carry all this stuff. Well, it's easier when you got an 16-inch bass drum, I guess. That's good.
A little bit easier. Yeah, incredible taste in two things: drum kits and denim shirts.
Denim shirts. He was so early on that. But yeah, so right before we did this record, like I think it was actually we ended the week before, because I remember we went straight to New York either on that Sunday or Monday, maybe even. The Vanguard started on Tuesday. We did a 3-week tour in Japan, which was really the first tour and introduction or iteration of this quartet. So that would have been in the beginning of March, end of February. And it was like every night. I think we had one day off a week, and we were playing at the Blue Note clubs in 3 different cities. It was a whole different setup back then. It wasn't like this one night, 2 nights, but we played in Tokyo and Fukuoka and Osaka. And it was a double bill with Benny Green Trio, with Christian McBride and Kenny Washington, K-Wash on drums.
Amazing.
So we'd each play like half the set and then break and then half. So we'd hear them every night. We were hanging. We were going out to jam sessions and playing all this music. Like, so that was all the lead up, and then went right to New York, flew in, and then started the next night, did this. And it was very much like, that's the way I think to prepare for a live record. Now, I don't know if I'd want to do this now at my advanced age.
You were coming off a Japan tour.
Yes.
Resetting your clock at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah, and maybe there was a couple of days, I don't remember. But I don't remember being really tired at the Vanguard. But the main thing, I mean, the tour actually could have been anywhere. Yeah. But the fact that we were playing every night in a club, you know, and it was like, you know, 7 nights in Tokyo and then 7 nights, you know, so it was very extended. And we were also playing for Benny Green and Christian McBride. Like, I'm thinking, and me and Benny are like hanging, but I'm listening to him play every night, and I'm like, damn, I got to bring it because I got to play the next set right after him, and then he's playing after me, and so it was a really special time. Wow. And hanging with Chris Thomas and Chris McBride, 2 of my best friends forever, and Blade and I mean, everything.
What a luxury too that just doesn't happen anymore.
I know.
Like, I feel so bad for these young musicians that don't get to have big long stretches to work stuff out. You know what I mean? I mean, you can put together a tour, but like you said, it was different. You would get these like 2-week long engagements sometimes at places. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you get to like actually.
It was just sets and reps.
sets
and
have
reps.
to work it again and again in front of a live audience, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think it was really smart of Josh or whoever figured this out, like to get that, because we'd all played together. Like we could have just come into the Vanguard.
Yeah.
Like we had all played with Josh. I mean, Blade had been playing with Josh for several years. Me and Chris and Brian had been playing together. Like I've been playing with Josh, like right up to that point with Roy. I mean, like there was plenty. We didn't need to play together for rapport, but we needed to become a band.
Yeah.
And I think Josh understood that, and we would just play the stuff and a bunch and led right into that. So a lot of people were kind of like, "Oh my God, you've got this brand new band, and y'all just rolled up into the Vanguard and made this incredible record." But that's the little secret behind it.
Well, this was released as a double CD, so it's kind of
Dopio.
lost in the streaming era were these double CD, sometimes triple, sometimes quadruple CD releases of things. And this was a double CD, and it has one of the greatest 1-2 punches. The last track of the first disc and the first track of the second disc. The last track of the first disc is St. Thomas, and it's followed by the first track of the second disc, Herbs and Roots. Maybe the two greatest 1-2 live tracks ever next to each other. I mean, you can make an argument for it. They're both.
Do we need to talk about Donny Hathaway live at the Troubadour? Sonny Rollins live at the. I can name about 30,000 records.
I know you haven't listened to this, man. This is really good. They're both about 12 and a half minutes long.
Okay.
But we're going to listen to a good chunk of St. Thomas. It starts with a legendary intro by Joshua Redman, and then has a legendary piano solo by our very own Peter Martin here. This is Sonny Rollins' composition, St. Thomas.
That's a pretty good time he's playing there, actually.
Would you do this every night on St. Thomas, or was this?
Yeah. I mean, it was very different. Like this was not a. He sometimes played short, sometimes long. I mean, he would do a lot of this stuff because he hears that and it's good and it works. I think sometimes we would just start it too, though. It wasn't. There's a lot of Joe Henderson influence here too. It's easier to see the Sonny Rollins on Josh in general.
Yeah. That's interesting.
The way he hears the bottom of the register of the horn and jumps up and down while the grooves are going very Joe-esque.
Nice take.
Yeah. And Josh would hear these things. A lot of people think that's a gimmick. Like he's hearing that stuff because it's not all perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not like, oh, I'm only going to play it when I know. Like he's going for something. And sometimes it's like, which to me is thrilling. You know what I mean? As opposed to like that's not easy to do. I don't play saxophone, but I had no idea this was so long. Yeah, see, this is like a different way of playing free, which Josh has always excelled at playing free. And on a couple of the tracks, in the more traditional, like free, like free jazz.
Yeah.
But this is a kind of free jazz too, I think. Even though it's like harmonically, it's very down the middle in terms of the tune, but like rhythmically in the form and like stretching it out.
Stretching everything out.
Yeah.
The melody, stretching the
And
melody.
the melody, yeah, little fragments and stuff. And like he has such a great understanding of like what's thrilling and interesting about the instrument.
Yeah.
It's like a trumpet player that knows to go up high. It's not just a gimmick if it's musical. Like people love that, you know. Because it's like, how does he do that? Oh yeah, okay. Wait, does he play another solo after this?
There's still 7 minutes left to this track now.
I guess it worked though. Oh, okay. Yeah.
This guy's really got his Peter Martin shit together.
But I'm definitely hearing like some influence from this kind of stuff Josh plays in the intro.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of going in and out of the time and then. And it's got a little bit of a frantic feel. Hopefully it's effective, but
It's
like
a party, man. It's
yeah.
a party.
But it's not like a cool tiki torch party. Like, you know, let's chill. It's kind of like, come on, man. But I think Josh established that on the intro, you know. When in doubt, just rip some bebop shit.
Always.
Oh, I remember always being like, phew, get the swing. I can do that.
This is so killing. That's you, I think.
I think that was Josh. I wasn't very vocal in this period. I was too nervous.
Thoughts?
It's cool. I mean, it's cool. I mean, to be honest, like, yeah, it's fine. Whatever. No, I just don't. I'm always surprised when people are like, I love your solo that, because for me, like, it's kind of hard playing over this tune. Even when I occasionally do it now, it's just C, right?
Agreed. It's
like,
a deceptively difficult tune to make sound good.
And I never really felt like, I remember I used to joke with like Blade and with Chris. It was like, it was like, wait, do we know how to play? Is this calypso? Are we swinging? Whatever. And Blade would just be like, nah, man, it's cool. Kind of a New Orleans, but it's like,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about it a lot, but it definitely was not, I think you're always trying to get out of the shadow of the way on a tune like this. It's so associated with
Sonny
the composer,
Rollins, yeah.
right? And the way that he played it. And I think
Saxophone Colossus.
yeah, and I mean, Josh did a great job with that extended intro and just his whole vibe about the tune of like you say, making a party, opening it up, a lot of nods to that version, but also just like, let's see where we take it. But I do remember always being relieved when it got to the swing, and we wouldn't always do it. Like there wasn't necessarily a trigger for that. We wouldn't even always go to it, and sometimes I would trigger it. I can't remember. Like it would be triggered by how we were playing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I'm giving a signal. Like it would just go there, or it wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the thing that kind of there's so many like mountaintops that Josh already went to before that, and then the melody. It's kind of like it's always like, okay, what do we do now? And so we're still in the groove. So the one thing we still have in our back pocket is like, well, we can go to the swing because we haven't gone there
It's
yet.
so effective too. It's almost so effective.
Yeah, and it's almost like a pulling back in a way because it's not. It's like it's a little bit
not
more
as much of a party.
It's not as much of a party.
Yeah,
it's more
yeah.
of like, let's go uptown now for the rest of the party. But it's fun to hear this, man. It was a good time. And I remember, like, there's little things I hear in there, like Blade, like the way we've always played together. And I remember this at the time. And I don't think I know we never talked about it, but there was a lot of, like, trust there.
Yeah.
So there's times when, like, I could really go for something and he would come in, like, he hit that one right on it, which probably helped me because that's very not much like Blade. Like, and then I played over the bar line.
Yeah.
And then I think the next time, like, I pushed right to the one and then he played. Like, so there was a lot of just trust that you have when you played with somebody every night for a couple of years and leading up to this. So that was a real luxury to be in.
Peter, my Desert Island track
Yes.
is the first track of that second disc. It is Herbs and Roots. I think it's the best composition on the album. I still think about it all the time.
Why don't you just bring me on the desert island, then I can sing all this stuff to you.
Excellent. I assume y'all are picking up a bass.
Yeah, we're walking up. You're trying to
Yeah.
get by people walking up there. Super awkward.
Great opening track for a set.
Oh, yeah.
So funny, man. Sitting here with you listening to this. I literally learned this when I was like 17 years old. And like all your voicings.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm glad you kept going further, to be honest.
We could... That band of teenagers could not actually hang with this.
Did I keep the bass line going while... Because I could do that, but I remember being like, to record it, let me... Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I've abandoned it. Josh, great composer.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Is he recognized as that? He should be.
I think so.
Yeah.
Hey.
His stuff is simple and catchy and has little quirks and twists to it.
Well,
It's great too.
It really goes to show. We talked about how he's, as a player, treats that saxophone as rhythmically as any tenor saxophonist.
Yeah.
Like a drummer.
Yeah.
And that helps with composition. Because like the rhythm of that head, the way that he starts it a little bit earlier
Yeah.
each time and incorporates those hits, that'll always work.
For sure. And this kind of like, he's very... That bass line, he wrote that. Like, he's not one of those like, okay, F minor, come up with something cool.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we would change things or whatever, but he always, as my recollection, would have all the important elements. Like, he would spend time and like put that together. There was very little, I mean, there's plenty of like stuff to hear and play over. He didn't write all that bad shit I'm playing. But, but the important elements of it. And the great thing about this bass line is, the release is coming at some point, Or maybe we stay on, I don't even remember.
Oh, what? might play it here,
Yeah.
too, man.
There we go.
Perfect. I love it too because we're, like 50 minutes into the album at this point when you're streaming it, and it's like all of a sudden we're gonna throw down, the most throw down song on the record.
Is this this is the first on the second CD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you got for your desert island? If you
I mean, I would be none. I mean, I don't want. I mean,
it's hard, man.
I would bring food, fruit, and vegetables instead.
I just want to say in front of our audience here that I appreciate you even agreeing to do this because it's tough to listen to yourself especially in front of other people.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it like, I mean, I like this.
Weird.
This is good. It's good. It's just, it's so like, I have a lot of like this takes me back to that, like more than I would think.
Yeah.
And it's not that it was a very happy time for me. And I like the way I'm playing actually more than I thought. But there's also an element of like, oh, have I gotten better since then? I'm a little bit, but not as much as I could. You know what I mean?
Oh, no,
it's a little bit like
you've definitely grown. For
yeah.
sure.
But what's fun about it too is like that's me.
Yeah,
It's not-
yeah.
Like I haven't told. Like there's so much stuff on there I still play. And when I was a little younger, would hear that would frustrate me because I'm like, oh, I should have developed. And I was like, you know what?
That's how everybody is.
That's me. It's
Yeah,
all good.
That's how everybody is. It's just 24-year-old you. That's
Yeah. So the one that I came up with, now full disclosure, I did not listen to this. Was more just my recollection of all these tunes. Jig-a-Jug, which is that the first track?
First track.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's if you want to remember that.
That's pretty much as far as I usually get in this. When I was like, oh yeah, that was fun time.
Killing.
All right, let me go listen to some track.
Great.
But I mean, that would be something that if I listened to every day, I'd be like, it's cool. I like the way everybody's playing on that.
For my
But Just in Time, I could have done that. I like that tune a lot.
Just Time's great on this. For my apex moment, it's actually one of your solos, and it's kind of I zagged here when I could have zigged, but it's your solo on Remember.
On Two Feel. I like Two Feel.
It just reminds me of how you actually a little bit how you play now.
Yeah.
It was a little bit different than the other solos on this album.
Yeah. I do remember, like, we were not afraid to just, like, play this stuff. Like, there's a Hank Mobley record, which I think is where Josh heard this, playing this. And it's very, we're not playing just like them, but it's not that different. Like, we weren't afraid during that period to just play. Yeah. And we had enough other kind of stuff on here. So when we were playing a standard, like, there's no crazy reharms or anything on this. Is there a little bit of reverb on the piano, I think? That would have been a 90s thing.
I don't know. It's hard to hear in here.
Yeah. I didn't notice it until just... Blade just catches everything, but in such an interesting way. It's never like... It's very subtle, but it's like, feels so good to play with.
The trio here is like off the charts, reading each other's minds, sensitive to dynamics. I also love throughout this whole record, like you mentioned, how Josh is vocalizing your solo.
Yeah.
Throws in like a whoa.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Yeah, I think this is a better solo than St. Thomas.
It's great.
I think
This is my favorite solo on the whole album. What about you if you had to pick an apex?
that I've probably never heard that solo since then. Apex moment. I like Blade's. I just listened to it right before this.
Yeah,
So,
good.
The Blade and Redman trading on St. Thomas.
Yeah,
that was great.
Let's check that out a little bit.
Just go like 17 minutes into the track. I think that's where they start. because Blades. It's long trades. Is that a whole chorus? Yeah. Blakey. Which you don't think about for Blade, you know. Totally Blakey.
Woo, man. Damn. So good,
I
dude.
forgot about all his Blakey influence on this, man. Because you always think of Elvin, you know. He's definitely there, too. Percolating. Down low. Pulled it back. Josh like, no, we're going back up. Yeah, I can listen to this a lot. Yeah, that's great.
Whenever I hear Brian Blade, especially live when he's playing to a room, I feel like he's just, not only is he, of course, this incredible jazz drummer, but he's almost like he's the greatest orchestral percussionist that's sat down at a drum kit. Like he makes it sound like he's the entire percussion section in an orchestra somehow. Like he's timpanis and all the sparkly stuff. And I don't know if it's just a combination of his touch, his taste, his dynamics, but there's something about him that feels very grandiose when he plays. Like all of the solos, he just knows how to get your attention with dynamics, with the timbre of the drums, and more than any other drummer that I can think of. I mean, you mentioned Elvin as a direct influence, but
yeah,
to me, it's like that plus.
I agree. Like, it's like, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Orchestral. You know, he's such a orchestrator.
He's an orchestrator
at the drums, which we always think about, like the drums are part of the orchestration. But when you extend it out the percussion, like there's from the low to the top, from the cymbals, the hi-hat, but his bass drum and low tom interaction, like there's so much of like almost like a constant drone effect and that Blakey stuff.
Rumble with all of it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And really it's very much like the way a great pianist takes advantage of the entire range at the right times. And I think on that solo, it's all out there.
Bespoke Spotify playlist title. Peter, you got anything good for this one?
Well, I like my I like my martinis and my live jazz albums dry.
Good. I like that. And that's referencing, of course, the Village Vanguard's dry sound.
Yeah, and shout out James Farber. I think he did an incredible job on this. It was so fun working with him during this whole period. Farber, but it was also, it's very dry. Although hearing that piano there might have been, I think there was some reverb put on or whatever, but I think, he did a great job of capturing how it feels, I've spent so many hours. I just really have. Playing there over the years, certainly not nearly as much as some people, but it just takes you there, and it's such an interesting room because pretty much wherever you sit, I haven't sat all over, and I've spent way more time up at the piano or by the piano, but there's pretty much the sound and the feel. It's just a different volume level where you are and what you're hearing more of. But there's that clarity, there's that dryness, it's the same thing when people are like, yeah, clapping or whatever, everything, that presence, you're omnipresent with the music. And what that does to you while you're playing is a very special things in terms of focusing in and how that energy of the room, the history, but also more importantly, I think the energy of the people that are in there, the musicians on stage, all of us, all the humans in the same room.
So I like my martinis and my
live jazz albums dry.
I have a couple. The boring one I have is Village Vanguard Classics.
Ooh, going straight down the middle on that one.
Yeah, that's straight down the
middle. You're either going to get a strikeout or a home run.
But then I've got a fun one too. I've got one called Floop.
Weep.
And that's just referencing my Joshua Redman impression. So it's a playlist called Floop Weep.
Right.
And it just is everything that sounds like that, including a lot of Joshua Redman intros.
Well, I was just thinking. So at first I was like, oh, you can only have Joshua Redman on that place. No, but Joshua Redman and every saxophonist that came up
That's right.
8 years after him.
Incredibly true, yeah.
Melissa Aldana. Everybody's so influenced by him.
So up next, what are some other albums that pair well with this? I have a couple of other Village Vanguard albums. I have...
Oh, good.
You mentioned Benny Green. I have Testifying.
Oh,
1992.
Carl
Benny
Allen
Green,
and...
Christian McBride.
Christian McBride, of course.
And then I have Art of the Trio, Volume 2, Brad Meldau Trio with Larry Grenadier and
That's a
Jorge
good pick.
Rossi.
Yeah, Meldau.
Both live at the Village Vanguard.
Awesome. So I was thinking more along the lines of just like early 90s jazz that I love listening to. Mood Swing by McBride. I love that record. I listen to that record so much more than this record because that's where I learned all that. Like when he first called me to join the band.
That was the album that was out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to memorize all this music and I'm going to listen to it. That was like the most I ever listened to Meldau and McBride. All this, it's a great record. And then Christian McBride's Getting To It, which I believe was his first record on Verve. Mood Swing, of course, and this Live at the Vanguard with Warner Brothers. But like the two big labels, three. Blue Note, Warner, Verve, all with their own kind of sounds because of the engineers and production teams. Yeah. But I think McBride's Getting To It, one of the great kind of early 90s Verve or any kind of jazz record. So that would be a fun little walk down memory lane in that up next.
Do you have any quibble bits?
Yes, I put me. A little bit of a... Well, no, but I do... No, I could go through a list of things. It's really not that important to people because I do think I played well. I mean, it sounds good, but that's part of the thing when you hear it. It's like, ugh, why did I play that? Why didn't I catch that? Because I'm listening in a different way, so I'm not super objective, but that's it. I mean, maybe now listening to it, not even again, because like I said, I haven't listened to it a lot, but maybe the piano's a little bit out of balance, a little bit.
Yeah, it is. That's what
But that's how it kind of sounds in the Vanguard, doesn't it?
I don't know. I can usually hear the piano pretty well, better than that. And that's my only quibble bit is it sounds like the piano's maybe in a different room. Yeah. Or it wasn't.
This certainly wouldn't be the first Vanguard record that sounds like that.
No, it's not, but I would have loved to have you a little bit more present in the mix. And the piano tuning, which I know there's not a lot you can do.
Well, I was definitely playing hard. I can tell.
You were definitely playing hard.
I wasn't down low because I wasn't. In fact, that probably would have been detrimental to the piano tuning. But yeah, we should have had because I don't think they were doing, it should have been tuned like every set because of how hard we were hitting.
Yeah. Snobometer, what do you got?
I'm going to go with a 5. I'm just going to do that every week from now on.
Just right in the middle.
Does anyone like the snobometer? You know what it is? I like the name.
Snobometer.
Well, because it used to be Snobometer, which was fun, but it sounded like Snotometer or something.
Yeah, Snobometer's great.
Bill Martin, William Martin, my father, William Martin Jr., Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know why I said that. He hasn't been there in 70 years, I don't think.
More U City now, probably?
More U City. But the Snobometer, named by my father, renamed, has it lost its luster?
All right, one more time.
I got 5. The reason being is this is a record people talk about a lot, so that makes it not snobby. But it's also a record with 2 CDs 12, with 11-minute songs. That makes it very snobby.
So now we're at the stage of the Snobometer where you have to
I didn't say anything about Aunt Linda or Ethan Iverson.
That was good. Okay. But you're at the stage where you have to comment that you don't know what it means, and you nail it every time. You've been nailing it, because I think that's about right. I have 3. I could have put 4 here as well, because I feel the same way. I feel like it's slightly snobby because it's a live album with a bunch of long tracks, but really catchy heads, really incredible swinging solos. I feel like it's a 3. But you got it, man. You nailed the Snobometer. There's no question.
You just want me to do 5 because it'll be like, let's move on after it.
You totally understand it. I feel like you.
So Ethan Iverson's is meh on this record, and Aunt Linda are meh on this by saying 5, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is this record for? Can we make a little bit of a side?
I think it's for
Is it for musicians?
17-year-old Adam Madison High Ridge. I think that's exactly what it's for.
But think about that. There were a lot of 17-year-old
100%.
Adam Madisons at that time.
Dude, like I said, every jazz nerd I knew in high school was super into this album. And I think probably if we can see the comments of the people who are going to love this on YouTube, on Spotify, it's going to be a very similar demographic.
Yeah, and actually, you know what's fun for me now is like hearing these great young players. Like we were just together at the Good Night, Good Luck. Yeah. And the wonderful pianist that was playing,
Joe Block.
Joe Block,
yeah, incredible.
Yes. Shout out Joe Block, who sounded great on that. He kind of mentioned, really enjoying this record. It's fun to see the younger musicians connect. So the 17-year-olds, that could be at any time.
Yeah, it's not just in 1995.
Exactly.
I think it's just whenever
But there's a special thing. It's like when something's happening at that same time.
Yeah.
Because you were probably listening to Herbie. Oh, I know you were listening to Herbie McCoy and
you
stuff.
know what it is? You know what it is with this album? As I think when you're a young musician and you're just starting out, I feel like you hear something like this and you hear like the interaction that's happening between you all and the crowd going crazy.
Yeah.
And these incredibly long built up solos, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is why I play this music. Like, this is what me and my friends do in our basements together. Right. And I didn't know you could do this at the Village Vanguard.
Right,
you know what I mean? I didn't know that you could just like build these things that feel this good and play these killing tunes and like take it to these places, and that, you know, audiences are gonna like, woo, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
It's very aspirational, this album. You're like, man, we could do this. Like, they're just playing St. Thomas. It sounds unbelievable.
Right. We've got that in the fake book right here. I got the chart.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a 5-minute intro on this. And then everybody's like, maybe.
Yeah. But it does. It makes it seem, it's like maybe in 7 or 8 years that could be me, because
And it just feels good too. It just, you know, you and Blade and Chris Thomas, you guys just feel great as a rhythm section. Joshua Redman, we've already established, writes these incredible songs. That he's a great composer, very rhythmically fun, interesting, but simple harmony that's kind of easy to play. This is playable.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
All right. Is it better than Kind of Blue? No.
Hell no. I put a hell no. I actually wrote the word hell.
Okay. Accoutrements, I have a 6.
Oh, I put a 6 too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't think it's
album cover's okay. It's not great.
You know what's interesting? I remember there was like a printout of this. We were on the road somewhere, and Josh was like, "Man, what do you guys think of this?" Is one of the things, and we were all like, I thought we were going to maybe all be on stage at the Vanguard at the playing, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're not on the cover.
You're in the inside.
We're on the inside. Kind of a weird picture of us. But I remember thinking, like, I think for the time it was very, like, I understand why they did it. Yeah. And I mean, shout out to Josh for like really pushing for this to be a double CD, because the record company definitely was like, let's just pick the one. I remember that. Really? We're going double? We got to charge twice as much? We're going to lose half as many people are going to buy it, you know? Oh, no, you couldn't charge twice as much. That was the other thing.
That was the other thing, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just all right.
Okay, so leave us a comment, by the way. We have a couple of comments here. We like to read some of our comments. This is from Spotify. This is from our Chick Corea episode a couple weeks ago. James Ellison says, I've just now been on such a binge with this album, so I was super stoked to see you guys do this. We hear this a lot about people who are into a certain album, and we'll talk about it. Galb E says, you have inspired me to listen to this album again. That's what it's all about, Galby. We're talking about the electric band.
It's not Galby.
Galby. Marcus White says, dope. Love how y'all love music like real musicians. We certainly do, Marcus White. Thank you.
That's not what Marcus said. You read it wrong. So wait, say it again the way you just did it.
Dope. Love how y'all love music.
No, what he said was dope. Love how y'all love music like real musicians. There's no comma.
Yeah, I implied a comma.
Okay.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.